Hey there, welcome to Leader Feeder. I'm Kirk and I'm your host. Today we're going to talk about the role of an ambassador and how that relates to a frontline leader. So as you probably know, an ambassador is someone that represents a country or an organization to another country or another organization. So here in Canada, we have the Canadian ambassador to Germany, or we have the Canadian ambassador to Taiwan, or the Canadian ambassador to any other country that you can think of. And their job is to build strong relationships between Canada and the country that they are representing Canada to. That's their sole role, is to try and build strong relationships. And that's, of course, that's through trade, that's through immigration policies, lots of other things. So if we think of an ambassador and we simplify that role down, it's someone who is good at building stronger relationships. Now, how does that connect to a frontline leader? Well, in a way, a frontline leader, in our frontline leadership training program, we talk about how a frontline leader sometimes feels caught in the middle. And what we mean by that is that there's the frontline leader, we've got their team members right here, then we've sometimes got multiple levels of management above that. So we might have managers, directors, VPs, all the way to the CEO or the top of the company. And so the frontline leader acts as sort of an ambassador from leadership down to the front line, right? They're representing the needs and the wants and whatnot, the communication of leadership to the frontline workers, to their team members. And in the same way, they're taking messages and needs and wants from their frontline leaders and communicating those up to senior leadership or the executives. So they have this kind of dual role where a typical ambassador is really representing kind of one body to someone else, and actually a frontline leader is kind of doing this dual role of representing both to each other. So that's kind of an interesting piece there. So how do you do that? How does a frontline leader be a successful ambassador? Because again, the role of an ambassador is to try to strengthen relationships. And so the role of a frontline leader as an ambassador is to try to strengthen the relationship between their team members, the people on their team, and senior management. So how do they do that? Well, a couple things that I want to give you as tips that you can do as a frontline leader and that you can share with your frontline leaders in order to help them be better ambassadors. So the first thing is they have to filter messages appropriately, right? As an example, change initiatives might come down from management. Hey, we're going to do this new way of doing things. We're going to buy this new machine. We're going to set up this new SOP, or there's this new health and safety regulation that's come into place, and now we have to do this process differently. That gets fed down to the front line, and they're told that this is what the change is going to be. And sometimes their feedback is not very positive, right? Management in their wisdom has brought down this stupid new rule that we have to follow. Or, do they know how much extra work that's going to cause us? Those idiots up there don't know what's going on the factory floor. There can be a lot of negativity there. And as a successful ambassador, again, thinking about how do I strengthen relationships? If you take that message from the front line and you just verbatim, word for word, share it with the management, say, well, hey, this is what the people on my team think of your idea, you can imagine that that's not going to go over very well. It's probably going to create a bit of a power dynamic where it's going to be, well, they don't have a choice, they need to do it. It doesn't matter if they think it's stupid or not. And so as a leader, your role is to go, how can I take the essence of this message? How can I take their concerns about this change initiative and feed them up in a constructive way? So it might be, hey, when I threw the idea out to the team, they had some initial reservations about how practical this is actually going to be to implement on the floor. And here are some of the questions that they've asked us to think about. All right. So if we actually take one more step back before we even share it with management, you might say to the team, hey, I know that there's probably some flaws in this plan. It's coming down from leadership and they're not necessarily on the floor as much as they could be. And so you're right, they may be missing some angles. Let's help them fill in those gaps. So what concerns do you have? What questions do you have that I can feed back up to management? So you're already doing this really great job of being an ambassador from management to your frontline workers, to your team members, of helping them understand, hey, this is probably going to happen anyway. Let's try to be, open-minded about it. So how can you feed information appropriately up to management? And then in the same way, you're going to do the same thing, feeding information from management down to your team. So when you get word of that change initiative, or when you get word of that thing that you need to communicate to your team, instead of showing up to your team and going, oh God, here it goes again, more changes we have to deal with, and getting into what we kind of call the dirty bathwater, where we kind of complain and maybe even victimize ourselves a little bit. Instead, we say, this change is coming, and we want to be prepared for it. We want to be open-minded about it. So I'm gonna take the time to think about how I want to convey it in a way that is positive and constructive and open-minded rather than negative, so that the team is less resistant and more open-minded to the change. So we want to think about how are we filtering messages appropriately so that what's getting conveyed to one party or the other is helpful and meaningful and relevant and allows us to move forward rather than either side just kind of complaining about the other. So sometimes you do have to do that filtering of the message rather than just giving it in its raw form. All right. The other tip I want to give you is just buying into those change initiatives. So part of being an ambassador is knowing when things are going to kind of go through and that you're better off being open-minded to the change rather than being closed-minded and saying, no, we're not going to accept this, we're not going to work with this, we're not going to do this. And again, that kind of goes both ways. You want to have both teams trying to be open-minded with you as the leader, that in between, that frontline leader, kind of managing that open-mindedness. So, when you're going down to your team and you're sharing a change with them, asking the team, hey, I know this maybe isn't the best idea in the world, but how can we be open-minded about it? What could be the potential benefits of being open-minded to this change? What could that look like if it works out? And what are some of the negatives that you're seeing, some of the potential obstacles or hurdles that I should be feeding back up to management? That's the kind of thing you want to be thinking about. And in having that more open-minded mentality, you're going to be a better ambassador both ways. So there you have it. Try to be open-minded for these changes, because in doing so, you're going to be a better ambassador, and also be aware of how you need to filter messages appropriately so that what gets fed to either your team or up to management is helpful and constructive. All right, so now you've heard a few tips about how to better filter messages to your team, how to be a better ambassador, and now maybe you want to expand on that a little bit with some more leadership development. We would love to hear from you. And so what you can do is you can visit us on our website at uniquedevelopment.com, and either Greg, our president, or myself, we would be happy to chat with you at a discovery meeting to find out more about your needs and how we can help grow your frontline leadership team.